Welcome back to the Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. The buried lead now, that's what we call stories we don't think are getting enough attention. A shocking tale now about a U.S. Marine who tried to stop the sexual abuse of children in Afghanistan by a high-ranking Afghan police chief. But today, it is he that the U.S. military is pursuing. Major Jason Bresler tried to warn fellow Marines in a 2012 email about an Afghan police chief suspected of using a teenage boy as a sex slave, but then the major realized he had sent highly sensitive information on his personal Yahoo account. Bresler reported himself to authorities and was relieved of duty. Now Bresler's status as a Marine reservist is on hold as the military decides whether he should be discharged. The Department of Defense did respond to our request for comment on the story, but only to say it could not comment on this pending case. Bresler's attorney, Michael Bowie, joins me now. My first question, Mr. Bowie, did Major Bresler's superior officers ever do anything about this alleged child rapist Afghan police chief?
No, they didn't. And in fact, or they didn't do anything about the people who knew about him in the American chain of command that didn't do anything to prevent what then happened. Was that person, one of the Chai boys, these boys that sex slaves they bring on the base, murdered 3 Marines within 2 weeks of Major Bresler's email. And the people who allowed that to happen were never investigated, they were never sanctioned, they were never reprimanded, and the Marine Corps has spent 3 years, over 3 years, attempting to put Major Bresler out of the Marine Corps. And the police chief who was engaged in this reprehensible practice is, as I understand it, a police chief again in Afghanistan.
Oh, it's just awful. Bresler, of course, turned himself in after sending that email on his personal Yahoo account. He's now a New York City firefighter as his case is being litigated in court. Did he ever think that this was how this was all going to turn out?
No, no one who's familiar with these types of cases thought this was how it would turn out, and everyone who's familiar with it is shocked at how it turned out, because no similar case has ever been dealt with the same way. And in fact, he was punished. He was relieved from command. He also turned over, after the investigation started, he found another file that was on his computer, which was basically a file to give to him his successor that he hadn't deleted. He turned that in. He was relieved of command. He got an adverse fit rep, and then he moved on with his career. And it was only until 8 months later when the senior Marines, the Commandant Amos and other senior Marine generals, learned from a press report that he was talking to his Congressman Peter King about the incident, did they, within the course of 3 days, decide they were going to throw him out of the Marine Corps or direct him to a board of inquiry to throw him out of the Marine Corps, which is illegal. Every service member has a statutory right, and we want them to have this right, to talk to their congressman. He spoke to their congressman. He can't be sanctioned or retaliated against for that, and that is why he's being forced out of the Marine Corps, and it's plainly illegal.
And then a Navy legal review recommended that the Marines uphold its original punishment of Major Bresler because they feared holding new hearings on the case, quote, because they figured it may increase public attention to this case, especially in the aftermath of significant media attention to the allegations regarding the practice of keeping personal sex slaves in Afghanistan. There's obviously another story that we covered a few months ago, a similar case. Why would the U.S. military not want attention devoted to the problem of some Afghan authorities raping children?
Because this was a dirty little secret for a while until our case and some related cases, as well as some great reporting from Joe Goldstein at the Times and Dan Lamuth at Washington Post and coverage from CNN opened it up. But the fact is that our soldiers, sailors, and Marines are being told that they couldn't do anything about this practice where these Afghan leaders were keeping these boys as sex slaves because it would insult them. And they were being told that by the senior commanders who just simply didn't do anything about it. And therefore, it's just a secret that they didn't want anyone to know, because obviously no American believes that that's what our service members are doing. And in fact, it is illegal. There is a statute that prohibits our service members from engaging in a human rights offense, which that clearly is. And for whatever reason, senior military commanders didn't take the right action when they were there to set down clear guidelines. Our service members were put in impossible positions where some of them had to look the other way. Some of them, like Major Bresler and the Special Forces, people like Sergeant Martland, who did something about it, were then they were retaliated against to keep everything silent. And so And the final sort of period at the end of the sentence is when Major Bresler's case gets up to the Secretary of the Navy, who is the president's designee, instead of looking at the merits, their decision is based on, well, look, we really don't want this whole issue in the press anymore, so let's just approve it.
It's unbelievable.
Which is pretty egregious when your first segment was about Secretary Clinton, who the commander-in-chief said, despite anything she did, she was fit to serve.
Right.
Well, then certainly Major Bresler's fit to serve under the commander-in-chief's same standard.
Michael Bowie, stay in touch. Keep us appraised of the case. We appreciate it. Thanks so much. He's been missing for 12 years, but now